I kind of want to start it by just this first section of the book, we'll call it. Maybe we'll take it by sections. But basically, like the breakdown of pretty much everything you need to know in a very general term right out the gate. This like first, let me see how many pages. Yeah, the first like 40 pages, 20 or almost 60 pages should be in like every shop. Just for like the new person who's just jumping in, it's like this is the most concise, clear breakdown of broad things I think I've read. So from like 15 on is just 15 to 60, something like that. Perfect.
Yeah, it's like the most concise but entertaining overview.
Yeah, and I'm now that I'm kind of diving a little deeper into it, I love all the chapter heads too, like all the like kind of photo graffiti stuff on each chapter.
I really loved in this that like both the physical book and the audio book are kind of just different experiences that have their own, like they have their own Easter eggs. Like there's things that you'll appreciate in the physical book that you won't get in the audiobook, and there's things in the audiobook that are not really present in the in the physical book, songs to stand by and all that.
What was
because I did like I've gone through like paged through the physical book a number of times, but I read when I like to consume all of the words. I did that with the audiobook.
What was it that you found that was in the physical book that you didn't see in or didn't hear in the audiobook? I'm curious. I've only done the audiobook, and I'm wondering what I'm missing out on.
I think a lot of it is like just the layout and all of the images. Like it's just a really lovely book.
Yeah,
and I think that
the comic.
A lot of the stuff with like and I don't know what like all the extra attachments that came with the audiobook were. But like I think that there's just a lot of like playfulness in here. And all the different like, pictures worth 1,000 words. All those sorts of things. Okay, yeah, it's a stool, but
No, I like along with that, each time they introduce a new person, the collage that they had seemed to be highlighting different aspects of their personality and things that they liked, and so it was an easy way to kind of get immersed in that person as then they shifted into the new project. And I don't know if the audiobook was the same way, but like when they're describing how they do the piece, it definitely seems like they all wrote those portions themselves. So like it was explained differently. The things they prioritized was different. So you kept, you had, I don't know, half a dozen different perspectives on doing certain tasks and kind of reiterating stuff and feeling like it was the whole shop. And it really felt like that he accomplished the showing that, that it has his name, but the shop is a bunch of different people and they all do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he did a really good job of that.
Yeah, I thought it was, it kept it interesting, because he did like the bios on like people he like admired. There was like Peter Galbert and like Gary Knox Bennett, but then it was like also like just normal people who worked in his shop, So yeah, that was interesting. I feel that.
Although I do think his profile on Peter Galbert was just so sweet. Like I listened to the audiobook and you can hear the fangirling in his voice as he's talking about Peter Galbert in a way that didn't come through as much. Like he's kind of friendly and thinks Becksvoort is really cool, but Peter Galbert, he like just, you can hear the kind of emotion in his voice, and it was very cute to listen to someone just go on about a really cool woodworker in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we all probably feel a little bit like that with Peter Galbert.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, like some part of this book also just felt like a little bit of a love letter to the woodworking community.
Yeah.
You know, and all of the like different types of amazing people that we have within this community. You know, it's just like, hey, like I get to do this, but I get to do this with all these great people, and there's all these great people doing out all this cool shit. And gosh, I'm really lucky to get to do that with them. You know, I felt a lot of that reading the book.
And like all the projects he showcased all kind of had that same level of like respect and admiration. You know, it wasn't like this is, you know, a simple thing. This is a complex thing. Everything was like, yeah, like check this out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I really liked how he, the couple, you know, a pencil cup and the kazoo and things like that were all like, it was all equal as far as like amazing pieces and amazing opportunities to just enjoy woodworking.
Right.
Yeah, he really drives that home, that just the act of making with your hands and doing something, being creative that way is like, that's part of like, that's like real value of the woodworking that he loves.
Yeah, the enthusiasm was like really infectious.
Yeah. Yep.
I
was fortunate enough to see him on his on his kickoff of the book tour at the Berry Center in Kentucky, and for the Little Woodchucks in October. It was pretty cool. I have my cheese moment of fanboying with him image. But yeah. So, and he is that way with all like his when he was talking about the Little Woodchucks book, it's the same thing, the enthusiasm, that like really trying to just get people engaged in making and being creative and taking part in something that is bigger than themselves. So,
Has anyone read that book yet?
I haven't. I haven't gone through it yet. I'm going to go
The
through
Little
it.
Woodchucks?
I started it, but then I wanted to reread. A lot of it's written by Lee.
Yeah.
We got a little bit here, of course. Like, look, my daughter's turning 6 in January. And she's interested in doing stuff, but, you know, obviously, I'm like trying to find projects that don't lead to frustration for her, so she can like learn to like it, you know. So I'm excited to actually start to dive into that one.
It's a question I get asked all the time, that he seems to have come up with like a lot of like, what types of projects can I do with my kid? What kind of, you know, and it's a tricky answer usually, because everybody's kid's a different age, a different like, you know, activity level. Some kids just want to.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to read it. But yeah, I'm glad somebody kind of took the reins on that one. I know there's a few people out there that are like doing really good stuff teaching classes, like Kim McIntyre being one of my favorites, who teaches like teens. I hope to see more of it through this book. I hope to see like little pop-up classes maybe doing stuff in there. So that'd be cool.
Kids are like, little kids are so different from teens though, like, and you want to like, I don't know. I only have one kid, but I really want to grab her young. So, and she's in like a weird age range where it's like, well, shit, what can I do with this? Yeah, what can I do with this? I want to get frustrated super fast. So yeah, he's got like some carving stuff in there. Like there's definitely some accessible. Like you cut the pieces first and then put it together, you know. And I was like, okay, yeah, I think this is some stuff that's gonna work. Because teenagers kind of could, you know, could do it themselves. You know, they're like little adults.
Yeah. I had a question to pose to everybody here, because coming up in the kind of like production world, of woodworking, a lot of the people I worked with were all set designers. So they did a lot of the like play sets, knock down real fast. Is anybody here from that vein of work or ever do it?
Yeah, that's where I started. The more screws, the
Yeah,
better.
I knew we'd have fun.
Watching the theater extension that you held up with every scrap wood you could find flex under the weight of 30 people tap dancing, was where I started, and then went to CFC and was like, we don't use screws for anything ever. I never actually designed sets, just built other people's designs.
Yeah, that's
but
a
it's a
huge
totally
jump.
different. It's a completely different type of, like, it's the opposite in my mind of woodworking, of what like the stuff that we kind of do now is.
Well, and so much of it is like as a subset of woodworking is like really carpentry. Is its platforms and scenic painting. But it's yeah, it's definitely
It's also
a different skill set and mentality, right?
I think
Because it only has to look good from 40 feet away from one direction.
It's different, like working for clients in a cabinet shop, because they're like, oh, well, I want this, and they show you this like Pinterest photo of some like nice stained, not nice stained, like whitewashed pine. And they're like, this is what I want. But like in theater,
Nice
one of the prompts we got,
whitewashed. Okay.
yes, one of the prompts we got was make it look like Prince, like the musician Prince. And it was a Shakespeare show, and so like everything had to be like 1980s faux marble glitter sequins, and like this is the set that we're talking about. So it was really interesting to find out that he came from a theater background to start with, because that requires a like different, like when you're trying to please a client for theater, it's a totally different feeling than like, well, I want my cabinets to look like this. So yeah.
I think what I liked
kind of
about
like when he was. Oh, go ahead.
What I liked about his theater story was, you know, like they had to do it in these ridiculous conditions, right? I mean, he was telling that story about trying to, you know, get a sheet of plywood into a table saw with no clearance, so they were dropping it in from above and all this kind of stuff. And you know they're doing it like 2 in the morning. They've got 3 hours before they've got to have it done. So I mean that's got to be a world that's just insane. But it must have taught him all kinds of great tricks.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how far after that section of the book, but then he talks about, I think it was one of his carpenter friends, and he needed to take a piece of trim and touch it up a bit, and he pulled out a block plane and, just did a simple zipped off a, strip. And it was like this like moment of, oh my gosh, is that what actual woodworking really is? And it was like, it almost like I could hear him almost, or he kind of described like that moment of going from the facade of the set design to understanding how something solid and the craft and the quality and all that goes into it.
I love that you brought that up because that's one of my favorite things to talk about, especially like, we used to do that, they still do it at Rowan, the Kazurikai, and it's like you put a sharp plane in somebody's hand who's never used one. Everybody has that like moment of like, oh, this is what it's supposed to do. That's what it's supposed to be like. And yeah, the set decoration stuff too. It's like he had a moment where it was like, what I'm going to build now isn't going to be torn down in 3 weeks. It's going to last forever. And I think that's like one of my, or, as long as it can. That's one of my favorite things is like, oh, we're building to have something to stick around maybe longer than we do, kind of emotion towards it. And it's like, I don't know, that's just one of my favorite parts. And I feel like he conveyed that switch, like same with that block plane, really well. I didn't highlight because I listened to it, so now I'm trying to find all these.
Yeah,
I feel like to a certain extent, like we have multiple, we can have those moments multiple times in our journey through the craft. Like that moment where you realize that thing that you thought was really good, that there's something beyond that. Like you had this goal and you were trying to get to do this thing, and then you realize, oh, there's so much more, and like a whole nother world opens up for you. And then you discover something else, and a whole nother world opens up for you. Maybe it's learning. It's learning to mill your own lumber. It's learning to hand cut dovetails. Like I feel like there's those sort of critical moments in there, and I think that he captured that really well.
Yeah.
We like to call that a rabbit hole.
I'm currently exploring a warren of rabbit holes.
Marquetry rabbit hole.
Yeah, I'm having fun with it.
I'm in the carving rabbit hole at the moment. I'm just starting to dive down into it, so it's fun that you can find excitement in it in so many different places.
Yeah, I mean, like I've done even before I started woodworking, I did a lot of other creative adventures, and like you always have to have something that feels like play, where you're having fun, and that it's not like, oh, I'm trying to master this thing. It's like, no, I'm playing with this thing. I'm having fun, just so that you remember that it's fun.
Good reminder.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think Nick Offerman really needs to be and he kind of is, I think, the advocate for introducing people to woodworking. I feel like he does such a good job of that.
Agreed.
And taking away the pretentiousness of some of it, but really explaining why quality is so important and why it matters and how it's different. But he does it in such an approachable way. I mean, I think we all of us probably saw or reposted his what was it, on Colbert or Jimmy Kimmel, I can't remember, but he was talking about the quote about how everything turns on affection, and I love that. And it's just about and that's like that sums it all up. And I think he's just trying to take his enthusiasm toward woodworking, but using that guiding principle as a way just to share it with more people, and I love that. And the projects in this book are fantastic. They're every skill level, and you will learn something from every single one of them. And he just makes it approachable. It's just, I love his humor, of course, but I just like how he really genuinely just wants to share how much fun it is with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, we all get it, the, obsession. And I feel like Nick Offerman is, our way to introduce the rest of the world to Christian Becksvoort, because I feel like he's always bringing up Christian Becksvoort. I think I saw him on that same interview. He was talking about Christian Becksvoort or something like that. But yeah, but I feel like with all of the employee profiles and the other furniture makers, I feel like there was this through line with a lot of the people he interviewed and then himself, where he was talking about my parents raised me to be super resourceful, and they would build all their own stuff or sew their own clothes. And I feel like I had that kind of upbringing too, where my parents always encouraged us to try to fix stuff ourselves and all that. And I was wondering if this is I guess just a question to everybody, do you guys feel like you had that and it helped you go down this path, or maybe the opposite? You didn't have that at all, but you still feel like you miraculously found the handcraft or something despite it all, or something like that. So that's my question to the group.
Well, I'll start it off on the opposite end of the spectrum. I grew up in London and barely knew how to turn a screwdriver until my 30s. So complete opposite. And I think that's actually something that I found so refreshing about the book, with Nick, just the way that he kind of comes at it, sharing his background like that, but also helping me understand some of the things that drew me to the craft. Like the further I went down that rabbit hole, that realization that you can be more self-sufficient and you can fix stuff when it needs fixing or build stuff when it needs building. Even though I didn't come from that background, I really like the way that Nick in the book helped kind of almost validate some of the things that kept drawing me into woodworking as I got further down that path.
Yeah, I loved all the little tidbits he like put in there about like, you know, when you can make stuff yourself, then like you're bartering with your neighbors instead of just bringing your wealth to some, you know, corporation that's not local to you or something like that. I thought that that was a good sentiment.
A lot of community
I feel like,
book.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it. Well, I was just going to say, I feel like there was a part in the book as well where he was saying something along the lines of that people do best when they're in like smallish communities where there is that level of interaction that they can have between one another and that they're sharing, you know, contributing value to each other's lives. And I just feel like that's so dialed into what we need more of in our society now, even more so than when the book was first published. But yeah, I think hopefully there'll be even more people growing up with that influence in their childhood as a result of Nick's books, hopefully, especially a new one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the dream is to be able to create like a local woodworkers community or guild, but that takes a lot of balls and planning, which I don't have yet. So
yeah,
but yeah, John, I know you did like a meetup recently in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I had had a handful of people come out and just come over and look at chairs and talk about stuff in the shop or whatever. So it was kind of cool. Like I said, yeah, it's a lot of fun. So yeah, you're right. We're just trying to build that community. It's like it's tough because you're trying to like find your people, but you know they're out there. Kind of depends on where you're at as far as the percentage of them that are out there, but they're out there.
They're all hiding in.
We got a good digital community right here. I've been admiring your stuff. Your blue settee is looking great.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I've been painting all day. I've actually got the paint off my hands before the call. Nice. So yeah. But yeah, like as far as your question, Bridget, I think it was like a mix of growing up, like learning how to do stuff. A lot of it was growing up semi-poor, and my parents definitely grew up really poor, so there was a lot of that as far as resourcefulness and doing all that kind of stuff. And then it was weird because as they're raising, it was like, oh yeah, we want you to be successful enough where you don't have to do these things. Like you can pay somebody to do them, you know. So then that mentality was like, okay, I go to school and then go to school and do corporate America. I'm like, no, this sucks. I would rather just do the things. So it's like, okay, we'll just take a step back and figure out how to do the things. So it's like, yeah, growing up that way, but still being like raised to like aspire to something greater, but then realizing it's like, no, this was really where it was at all along. So okay.
Yeah, my dad was super handy, so we remodeled like most of the house throughout my life together, and like he built like a rocking horse for my sister that now my daughter has. My nephew, and now he refinished it and gave it to my daughter. So I think I didn't get into it for a while, in part because I was like 6, and then also I moved to New York City, where you don't have to necessarily be handy because you got a landlord, a very, I've had some good landlords. I was lucky enough, I guess. And so it's funny. I worked for a carpenter for about a year when I was first like moving to the city. But outside of that, I didn't really do much until like I rolled into my 40s and started getting a little more space. And I was like, my dad used to do this stuff, and I did it with him. Like why did I stop exactly? And then found myself jumping back into it. So.
Yeah, I definitely learned a lot from my dad, just following my dad around, a lot about like just problem solving and figuring shit out. Like he wasn't a woodworker or anything. So I learned how to do lots of other things.
Right.
I know how to patch a canoe. You know,
That's
like,
good.
Super helpful skill.
That's a
Flex
skill that's
tape.
like when it comes up. Yeah, it's like feather fall. When you need it, you're glad to have it.
yeah.
Right.
You know, when I need it, you know, I know how to work on the canoe. And you know what? I own a canoe pretty much just like the one that we had, you know, back when I was a kid. Smaller, but you know. But I think that like a lot of it was that it taught me that I was capable of doing things and figuring things out. And so that like anytime like really that like if I wanted to do something, it's like, okay, well we'll just figure out how to do it. Oh, how do we do this? How do we do
Yeah,
this?
that's a great
Oh,
mentality, you
like
know.
I learned that I learned that things could be fixed, and I learned that I was capable of fixing things, and you know, wear safety glasses. Like we were really big on safety glasses.
That's
My
important. Yeah.
grandfather lost the vision in one of his eyes from debris from a lawnmower.
Ooh, shit.
Like so, we are safety
They're
glasses
the most
focused.
important, right? What's the line? Remember, important safety tool is these.
Yeah, like it's
Mm-hmm.
you know, but I think that that's part of like what you know when people grow up with that learning that you're capable of it at whatever point in that your life that happens for you. I think that's an important part of kind of either what people get from it or what you know enables people to start woodworking. You know, is that process of learning that you're capable of it.
And that like things aren't too precious. Like I think it's important to instill in kids like you should instill like safety, like don't, you know, rewire the house or like stick a fork in the, you know,
Like
outlet or
you are
something like
precious.
that. Yes, but like in terms of like creatively speaking,
But yeah,
you know, I think it's important, yeah, like to teach kids that like you don't have it's like art isn't about like being perfect or like I know like a lot of teachers, at least when I was growing up, like I would not color in the lines like literally and metaphorically, and they would like try to get me to color in the lines, and I was like, you need to back off. This is not that serious, you know. So, but yeah, so I think it's
I
important to teach kids to be creative and don't be afraid to try out a new pursuit or handcraft or something, you know.
But I
yeah,
also think
and that
that's something that's modeled, even if they're not necessarily in your shop with you, or like even as a kid growing up, like being adjacent, I guess. It has more of a overarching perspective, nurturing than it seems. You know, I guess I say that as like someone who grew up with artists and like very handy parents and like learned adjacent and not always necessarily in the mix of every single thing. I still found my way into, you know, trade centered, art centered work. And then I noticed it in my own kids too. Like each of them like something different in my shop, and they're not all necessarily down here every second making something, but their problem solving and like perspective on a lot of things is impacted by it, you know? Like, so yeah, I don't know if they always have to be dead on, like following with someone to, I think it's your own attitude and mindset too. And it translates outside of the environment.
Yeah. Usually when my daughter comes to help me, I just whatever I'm doing, unless it's like something that I know I can get her help with, I just not really just finding something that she wants to do. You know, I'd rather like instill that like I'd rather enjoy it than like
Yeah.
actually help me with the thing I'm trying to put together as square as possible.
Yeah, but just knowing they're welcome to do that and
Yeah.
observe in whatever blips of time that they're focused for. It could be 10 seconds where they're like, oh, that's how I hold a screwdriver. And then they might be gone. Like their mind, they might be present. Their mind is somewhere different, you know? But later on they'll be like, oh yeah, I remember how to do this. And you're like, when did you learn how to do that? And it's just, yeah, that 10 seconds.
Well, I love that part. Nick was like, yeah, I got to school and realized that I was the only one who knew how to swing a hammer. It's like, yeah, that was my babysitter, was a box of nails and a hammer. and some 2x4s. Is what my parents like to say. And then we built skate ramps and did all that. So it was like pretty ingrained. But it's really funny the like not being precious and understanding that everything is put together by something didn't actually click for me too well until I worked with a couple people at this, like, one of my first jobs was in like this factory, and it was a 4-sided spindle sander. So like you send the piece in and it sands all 4 sides and comes out the other side. And we spent like 4 or 5 days. It was like, it wasn't coplanar anymore, so it was sanding these trapezoids. And we spent like 4 days with this thing apart, just working through it. And all my, all the foremen and bosses were so nice to let me just kind of sit there and watch and like explain what they were doing and like, this affects this, affects this, affects this. And we fixed it and it was great. And I was like, oh my God, I could take apart a car. I could do anything. Like, it all kind of comes together. You're like, oh, it's not so much. It's just a few things. Except my parents are nuclear engineers, so that one was a little unattainable. I don't understand it, but
I can't help but wonder during the book how many people in Nick's circle, in terms of the day job, like the acting and stuff, of what the background that we described. I mean, typically, I don't know how often people come from the background that you just described, but you imagine this like rich, famous kind of lifestyle where they're paying everyone to do everything for them and all of that stuff, and then you got Nick doing everything for himself and taking pride in it. I wonder how often that's just like a jarring contrast, or maybe a lot of actors are much more down to earth than I give them credit for. I don't know, but I couldn't help but have that kind of wonder as I hear him talk in the book, just how often does he meet people of his own kind,
That's Rogan.
Yeah.
We based
During his talk at the Berry Center, that's actually one of the things he touched upon was part of the reason this book, the most recent one, the inspiration was that he was like, I'll have conversations with people all the time in LA that literally don't know which end to hold for a screwdriver. He says it's astonishing. And so that's why he was like, that was one of the reasons I really wanted to write this book too. It was just to make sure that it gets out there to empower people. So yeah, so I think he does have that those experiences pretty often.
They do produce, though. I mean, like, what counts as, what has value? So again, the whole conversation, like, I'm not going to go out there and be a really good actor who can take my emotions and put them out there and be in a sensitive place and then turn back on and off, So I wouldn't know. I don't really know which end of that screwdriver to grab.
That's fair, yeah.
I get the impression that these days that Nick is kind of discerning about the people that he works with, and he chooses to generally work with people who have a similar down-to-earth vibe. Still may not know how to use a screwdriver, but people who practice a little bit more humility. But yeah, like he's gonna come across all kinds of people, but also like, you have actors, but around actors you have directors and set designers and props people, and props people are fucking mad crazy. You still do get all these, other people that he's going to interact with, that are, know how things are built. So I think it's it's a spectrum. Like, we all, like, you have that one friend who just doesn't know how to fix things. And, like, no matter what you do, they're never really going to understand how to fix things. And you just love them, so you help them. We run across all kinds of people, but it's, if it inspires people who are capable of learning to fix things, to learn how to fix things and make things. I think it's awesome.
More than a few times in the book, he's sort of self-deprecating about being an actor and what he does for a living, and always kind of redirects the focus on those people that are doing the shots. It's kind of cool in a way. Sort of, I think honestly, he thinks that's a much higher order of living, is making things than being an actor. Although it may be an act, but it sort of comes off. That's the tone that comes off.
Yeah, he calls himself a what is it, a dancing donkey or something like that.
Dancing clown.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We just have to look at his business and how he's set it up to be so maker forward. Just uses his name to bring the people to the place and then introduce you to the people. It's all like a real cooperative, and everybody has their specialties that they make, and they just sell what they make. It's not like, I forget who, like they delegate, like this person's the table person and this person's like the I forget who's who, but it's just such a cool business model.
Yeah, he uses his privilege and platform to kind of elevate other people, and that's why he's very much like, oh, don't look at me, like pay attention to everybody else kind of thing. It's really, really interesting. Yeah,
which is amazing from somebody who's in a look at me position,
Mm-hmm.
Right. Where it'd be really easy to kind of fall down that rabbit hole.
The book is kind of the same way. I mean, the production value on this book is remarkable, right? I mean, the illustration, the art direction, everything about it is like of the highest quality, and you don't often get that in a specialized book like this.
I want to give a shout out to John Hartman, who's the illustrator for all the projects. He's an amazing illustrator and also a fantastic woodworker. He's been on the cover of the Fine Woodworking magazine multiple times, articles all the time, and he teaches classes too, where they make their own hand planes, kind of like a Krenov style push plane. But his illustrations, the paddle, I couldn't get over how just awesome that illustration is.
Mm-hmm. The projects were so laid out so well.
What page?
Did he do the one for that sort of track saw, that homemade track saw setup? Is that one of his?
If you tell me what page, I can. In this book or somewhere else?
Yeah, in the book. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty early, I think.
162 is the paddle. If you guys want to look at that, that's one of my all-time favorites.
Okay. 22 is where the homemade track saw thing is.
22. No, that wasn't on, but that is a very cool one. That was, I think, the other guy. They're all called out.
Yeah, laying out a paddle diagram is a bit tricky, but it's so concise.
Yeah.
I feel
speaking
go for it.
Oh, I was just gonna say, speaking of canoes, has anyone ever thought about building one, or has anyone built one? Because I think that's something I would not try.
It's on my bucket list. Like, it's absolutely on my bucket list is to build a canoe.
Yeah.
I have the book. the
okay.
one he refers to, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I happened to see his video years ago, and I was like, oh, I should do that. And then,
yeah, I was
never based in the shop. I never get it up the stairs.
I was going to say that this paddle illustration might be better than some of the paddle illustration in my book on building canoe paddles. Like as far as a diagram that has so much information packed into this. Like, I feel like I could make the paddle based just off a diagram.
So John Hartman, while we hold on, he's my Becksvoort or like Nick Offerman. He's one of those people. Like Michael Purrier's up there too. Like people I just want to sit in a room with and like watch how they do stuff. But he's doing Mike Pekovich's new book that's going to be coming out soon.
Oh, cool.
So he's doing all the illustration on that. So that should be, and he does like usually 1 to 2 articles per Fine Woodworking magazine.
Okay, sweet. Yeah.
No,
their illustrations are always
makes
good.
sense.
So good. I also want to talk about the cartoons of each person as well, and the comic strip was just like those little breaks in things when you're reading it that are just like, it just keeps you so active. It's not some like dense, like I don't know, intelligent hand could have used a comic strip in between a few chapters.
Well,
nice.
little comic relief there,
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about? Like, it's just it's so fun. Like, have fun with it. It's not,
the other thing I really liked, it's a minor thing in the book, but it's unique because you don't see it all the time, and it's the Barry Stool project. I'm looking at page 129.
Yeah.
And on one of the steps, there's clearly a gap in the joint, and the book goes on to say one of the best things about working with wood is that you can do a crappy job and still get away with it. Cut some wedges, tap them in, nobody's the wiser. I mean, I just love that he's showing how to fix problems in the project in the book. I mean, that's real life. That's what happens on every project. So I love seeing that in the book. It's helpful.
No, that's an awesome call out. Yeah.
I
think that one of my biggest discoveries since starting to work in a cabinet shop is how much it is about just making it look right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I love that he, like you said, that is what this book, it gets people over that precious barrier. Like, oh, I don't need to I got to just start somewhere. And my first bench will probably be gappy or whatever, and say, that's great. I know how to fix it though too, and cover up those mistakes. I love that.
I just feel like from the first sentence of the book to all the way through, the way that everything's illustrated and presented, it's all about being humble and like the humility of it. I think for him personally, it's a grounding thing to woodwork outside of like the rest of his life. And then I think all the connections in it are really humbling, and then how it just continues to break down in all those spaces. It's just humility throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, just the genuine admiration of everybody that, he works with, all the woodworkers, and, how much love he has for everyone in that space.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think kind of piggybacking off of that, like it came through when he was talking about Mira Nakashima, and then also in some of his own stuff where he talks about just like, it really comes through that he believes there is like a healing thing about like not like having like nice stuff, like super expensive things, or having like, superficial luxury, but just like living with wood and working with natural materials. That is like such an enriching thing. And I agree. I feel the same way.
Living with beautiful things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, and just appreciating a well-made object.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did anybody take the quiz?
I didn't. What page is it on?
I just like looking at the handwriting. It's so fun.
I think I was surprised I didn't know the answer to the first question. I'm like, this is over my head.
I failed.
I don't remember what it was. Something about elm or something.
Mm.
Yeah, which wood species was used for the hull of old Ironsides?
Ah.
Yeah.
page is that on?
It's on 200.
200.
Oh,
okay. Let's see.
But it is just like such a funny, again, like another little break in a book to make it just enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Don't worry about it, Copper.
Well, there's something I kind of love about this because there's a certain sense to, you know, these questions where it's like you might know one or two of these things, but like it's just that sort of thing that just reminds you like, no, there's so much more to know and you don't know everything, so shut the fuck up.
It's again the humble, like you might not know everything.
Yeah, and like Margot, you were saying earlier, it's like, you know, every few years or whenever like you come to like a new horizon where it's like, oh my gosh, I never knew this whole world was here of like, and now I'm like totally a noob and ready to explore it. You know, like it'll be like marquetry or maybe getting into like carving or something like that. Like there's truly, well, not really, but it feels like there's like infinite things you can do in woodworking and like never really even get that good at any of them.
There are more things than we can do in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, you know, it's like I do occasionally ask myself, what age will I be when I get the chair bug for serious?
Hit you any day.
At some point, I'm gonna get the chair bug for
any
serious.
day now.
Chair disease is very contagious.
I know it's gonna happen. I just don't know when it's gonna be.
It's gonna. I see several other chair makers on this call. We'll talk you into it.
Yeah, I give you 2 years max.
Just subliminal message. Just send you like random chair parts and messages here and there, like a leg, comb.
There's always room for one more.
Ash, half of what I do is just look at your stories. So, chairs.